This week we have the full moon in Vishaka Nakshatra in Libra on Monday, May 12th. We have Jupiter moving into Gemini for the next year on May 14th, Wednesday. And also on the same day, Sun moves into Taurus. So I talked about these on the monthly horoscope, but I'm going to go much more in depth on the big transit of Jupiter in Gemini in today's episode. And I have a free PDF download for you. If you want to know how this affects you and your rising and moon signs, you can get that now at the link in the show notes or quietmindastrology.com/Jupiter in Gemini. So that's the link right now. You can go and get the free PDF guide. It's there for you to go into sign by sign horoscopes. But in this episode, I'm going to talk about the general energy of it that affects all of us equally. And some of the shifts we'll all be going through over the next year over this special transit that basically happens once every 12 years. So you can think back 12 years ago, where were you? What were you going through? What was shifting for you last time Jupiter was in Gemini? That was May 30th, 2013 through June 19th, 2014. So basically early 2013 to early 2014. That's the last time Jupiter was in Gemini. For me personally, that was some of the biggest growth of my life. And I happen to have Moon in Gemini. So this is going to be over my ascendant. And it was that time as well. Whenever Jupiter transits over your ascendant, for all Gemini risings and moons right now, that is a lot of personal growth, a lot of expansion of self, a lot of learning, a lot of teachers coming into your life. But for all of us, there's some level of this. It's just that the Gemini rising and moon is going to be the most amplified version of it. But all of us have this big opportunity over the next year for a lot of learning and growth, a lot of new experiences, making new friends, exploring new ideas, new philosophies, working with new teachers. It's a very powerful time. And if you want to know the other dates in recent history, June 16, 2001 through July 5th, 2002. And July 2nd, 1989 through July 21st, 1990. So basically the last time Jupiter was in Gemini was 2013, 2001, and 1989. Every 12 years roughly that we go through this transit. And to interpret and understand any transit and what it means for us, we've got to start to look at what does each thing represent. And a lot of this comes through astronomy first. If we just look at Jupiter and what it's doing in the solar system, it's protecting the Earth. So it's actually creating a gravitational pull in an orbit around Jupiter is a very big graha, very big planet, sometimes called a failed star because it almost had the ingredients to be a star like the sun, but not quite. So it's a very big, very strong gravitational pull, and it pulls in all this stuff from space that would otherwise make it in towards the Earth's orbit and hit the Earth. So asteroids, comets, etc., that are not hitting the Earth because they're getting absorbed by Jupiter's gravitational pull, Jupiter's moons, and Jupiter. And Jupiter in Sanskrit, do you know the name for Jupiter in Sanskrit? It's Guru. Like we talk about gurus, it's one who brings light into the darkness or dispels darkness with light. And Jyotish, Vedic astrology in Sanskrit, is the study of light. So we are wanting to understand how energy works. And energy is a version of measuring light. And basically everything on Earth exists because of the light of the sun, because of photosynthesis for the plants that gives us life for the animals and for everything else, and so on. And a lot of that is possible because of Jupiter. So Jupiter is called the Great Benefic. In the gunas, the three gunas, it's a sattvic graha. And you may know the other sattvic grahas, the Sun, Moon, and Jupiter, the three sattvic grahas. There's some debate on that, but basically without the Sun, Moon, and Jupiter, there's no life on Earth. Like arguably we could survive without Saturn, Mars, Venus, Mercury in our solar system. Arguably, this is possible that the Earth could exist, but without Jupiter protecting us and without the Sun and Moon illuminating us and creating the cycles of the flow of water on Earth and the tides of the ocean and everything else the Moon does, there would be no life on Earth. So Sattva is the essence of purity that In everything in the Vedic tradition, we want to move towards a more sattvic lifestyle. Jupiter points the way to do that. And as Jupiter's moving into Gemini now, it's bringing this sattvic, benefic, positive, dispelling of darkness energy into the sign, the constellation of Gemini. Now, if you're lucky enough to have a clear night sky, you can actually observe this yourself and look at Gemini. It's a big constellation. It looks like twins. It's sometimes described as like twin siblings or twin friends or twin flames, like lovers. There's debatable interpretations of that, but it looks like two people standing next to each other. And so there is that communication, social energy that we associate with Gemini. It's a very adaptable energy. So when we want to understand the signs, we also want to understand the rulers of them, and Mercury rules Gemini. So the planet Mercury moves very quick, and it gets its name as in the messenger. So it's communicating, transmitting messages, moving quickly, being very adaptable. Basically, people who have strong Gemini placements in their chart, like rising moon or 3 or more placements, that's what I consider strong, is a strong Gemini. Those people who have that are very adaptable, witty, clever, charming. They like things like comedy, communication, psychology. They're very social in a sense. They can be introverted, but there is a social element to Geminis. A lot of people who are very into like content creation and podcasting and things like this have very strong Gemini placements, or it's strong in their chart. Again, like a sun, moon, or 3 or more placements there. Also, you could argue Mercury being in Gemini is very strong. Jupiter being in Gemini is not necessarily the best placement. There's a whole mythology to this I won't go into, but essentially there is a tense relationship between the deities associated with Jupiter and Mercury in the mythology of the Vedic tradition. So you could think of it like this, of Jupiter being the wise old elder with years of experience and perspective, wanting to give us advice in life. And Gemini, like the young, clever, creative, brash part of ourselves that just wants to go and just play and just not think about it so much and not worry about the consequences and be a bit more playful and frivolous. So there's a bit of an odds here. Mercury in Sanskrit is also called Buddhi. We think of like the Buddha is the awakened one. Buddhi is the intelligence within ourselves. And it's more of like the intelligence we learn at school, or the intelligence you learn through studying a trade or a craft, of where you want to think about doing this before that, in this order, in this sequence. There's a logic, there's a order to it. That's the Buddhi energy, the Mercury energy. And the Guru energy of Jupiter is like beyond logic. It's intuition. It's beyond definition. It's knowing to go to this place at this time because you feel called to do it and it doesn't make sense. But then you meet this person and it's this perfect experience. That's the Guru kind of wisdom. And it's often in spiritual work, like doing this, like we're sometimes confused between these two, or at odds of these two, of is it really my intuition that's calling me to make this decision? Or is that just my ego and pride? Is that a part of my identity? Is it an attachment? The Mercury part of us, the Buddhi part of us, is the one that analyzes all this and overthinks it and questions it. The Jupiter part, the Guru part, is the one that just knows. So I'm sure you've experienced this many times. There's times where you just know. There's times where you rationalize things. And sometimes one is right, one is not right. It's not that one is better than the other. It might sound like I'm making it seem like the Jupiter one is the best. That's not always the case. Mostly, I would say generally, it's good to follow your intuition and to get into that flow state and the connection to the universe. And there's a sort of divine channel flowing through you and you're in the right place at the right time. That's Jupiter. And that's especially like Jupiter in Sagittarius in its own sign. And Jupiter in Pisces, and more go with the flow version of it, a very intuitive version of it. But those are coming later on in several years from now. Right now, we have Jupiter in Gemini. So we've got the intuition in the place, in the expression of wanting to understand logically and rationalize things. So it can be a bit of a clash. And that on top of everything going on this year with all the Pisces energy, which Jupiter rules Pisces, and now Jupiter is being ruled by Mercury, which is not how the guru wants to be governed in general. But there can be a very beautiful side to this. In the same way that we can learn so much from children. Maybe you've experienced this if you have kids, or if you've worked with kids, or just hung out with like your family's kids, people in the family. And there's just like this incredible free, creative perspective of life. And they'll just say things that are just like ridiculous, but brilliant. That's the wisdom of Gemini. And that's the kind of Jupiter and Gemini energy that is a positive expression of this, that we can bring out more of our childlike wonder and curiosity and exploration and experiencing life with new perspective and new eyes, just like a child would over the next year from essentially May 2025 until June 2026. Jupiter in Gemini, having this more playful, explorative approach to life. Again, this applies to everybody across the board, regardless of where Gemini is in your chart. But you do want to know where it is, because that's going to color what area of life this is going to show up in. So if it's in your ninth house of travel, this is more creative, fun, playful travel. Or if it's in your seventh house of relationships, it's bringing more play and creativity into your relationships. Now, of course, there's always a positive, negative, and neutral potential in every placement, just like every atom in your body has a proton, electron, and neutron. There's potential energies that can be expressed more and more depending on the environment you're in, depending on what you focus on. And it at least feels like, and we experience life, at least in my perspective, as if we have free will. So if that's true and we do have free will, then let's maybe use that and explore choosing the more positive expression of things. But we do want to be aware of the potential negative sides of this. It can be things like overthinking, overanalyzing, analysis paralysis, self-doubt, feeling insecure, overthinking things. And the Jupiter guru wanting the answer to the Gemini creative, playful, childlike energy, it can be like following your whims and doing things that are kind of maybe inappropriate or irresponsible or reckless, and not doing things that are really for your highest good. So this is where things like having a healthy relationship with your inner child are so helpful. And something that's been so helpful to me over the years, there's been many things, but one of them is this book, Inner Bonding, I've talked about before. Inner bonding. It's basically about building a relationship to your inner child, especially if you had some level of traumatic or dysfunctional childhood where your parents weren't so attuned or available for you that you kind of had to parent yourself. That is especially valuable work. So Jupiter, the wise guru, the grandparent you could think of, and Gemini, the child, are now the guru, the wise elders answering to the child. So if your inner child has a lot of unresolved stuff, unresolved trauma, resentment, frustration, anger, you didn't get the love you wanted, didn't get the attention you wanted from the parents and caregivers, that stuff is going to come to the surface this next year to either repeat the cycle until you learn the lesson, or maybe you learn the lesson. Or maybe you've already learned the lesson and this stuff doesn't come up this cycle. There's always layers to it. So, being kind, compassionate with yourself when you do have things come up, when you do have these issues I'm mentioning, like feeling overwhelmed, overanalyzing, being irresponsible, feeling like you're answering to this like toddler inside of you that just wants to do whatever it wants and cry about it. That part of us, we all have some level of that. So no one's better or worse for this, but it's an opportunity over the next year to heal that on a deeper level. So if it feels called to you, that's a tool I found very helpful, is the inner bonding process and that work. Not something I teach or do or offer in any way, but something I've done myself. I even started a book club for this many years ago because I thought it was so useful. And I shared it with my friends and they thought it was so useful. So we started a book club and we read a chapter a week until we finished the book and did all the exercises. Very good stuff. And I recently am coming back to it. And as many of you know, I talk about, many of you listening, you probably start to experience these transits before they happen. like the Jupiter and Gemini energy coming into your life, all these things I'm talking about, you're starting to see these potential pathways or ways this might express already showing up in your life before it even begins on May 14th. So if that's for you, if you resonate with that, these are some of the tools to work with. Now, I like to teach astrology here. A lot of people who follow me into becoming astrologers and going deeper in their path with my mentorship program. So let's talk about some more astrology stuff. What element is Gemini? Do you know what element it is of the 4 elements? It's the air element. What is the air element? It's about ideas. It's about creativity. It's about sudden gusts of inspiration like the wind, and then times where there's no inspiration, like when the wind is very calm and settled. When you have air placements like Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius, those are the 3 air signs. When you have like someone in your life, if you are an air moon and they're an air moon, you're going to get along super well, but maybe sometimes struggle with deciding on things. The air energy can be too creative and indecisive at times, but it's a really beautiful energy to sort of catch the wind of it and bring the wind in your sails. There's all these wind metaphors we could use with this, and bring this inspiration into our lives with Jupiter and Gemini, a very spiritual inspiration. You may find that reading spiritual texts is super inspiring. I actually was hungry for a new audiobook this morning and went onto Audible, and I'm reading the autobiography of a yogi again. I've actually read it, tried to read it a couple times before, and for whatever reason, it just never really called to me. Like I would get through maybe an hour of the audiobook and just like, it isn't the right time for whatever reason. And I know it's like such an incredible book and so many people find it so helpful, but never quite sunk in with me. But I'm reading it again now. I got through a few hours of it this morning, and I'm really enjoying it. It's giving me a really nice perspective. I feel like it's a great expression of this Jupiter and Gemini energy. It's the guru, it's the wise perspective, but Gemini is like very intelligent, that is very well written, very well narrated also, by the way. It sounds, I feel smarter just listening to the audiobook, even if it doesn't all like fully resonate in that sense that I would like it, because I know like I look up to Steve Jobs and he said he read this book every year basically since he found it and found it super helpful. Part of it for me is my Virgo skepticism. I'll say is like there's some things in there like they've tried to photograph this yogi and he doesn't show up on the camera. There's a part of me that's like, let's see that happen today with an iPhone. Let's find, is there a yogi like that today in 2025 who's claiming you can't be photographed? I'd like to see that, because now everyone has a phone in their pocket. So let's see if that is true, right? Healthy skepticism. At the same time, I do have personal experience knowing and meeting these yogis who have things that are way beyond logic, and, very much is Jupiter and Gemini. It's like, it expands your mind of what you think is possible. And that's the thing I think about from Steve Jobs a lot. Like basically, if that book is true, then like anything is possible in life if we tune into this energy of source and spirit. And I resonate with that a lot. But it's one of those books. It just didn't quite sink in for me in the past, but I'm reading it now and hopefully it will. I felt that way about the Bhagavad Gita at first, the Yoga Sutras at first. And then eventually those just like super sunk in for me, and it's like, okay, yeah, I get it. This is amazing. I love it. I want to read it again. And I built a deep relationship with those books. And, you might have a similar experience. Maybe there's something for you, like a spiritual teacher or a guru or a philosopher that you want to go deeper into learning about and go on their path with them, read their books. Jupiter and Gemini is amazing for this. Great for learning new ideas. And there's a modality to each sign: movable, fixed, or dual. The movable signs move things, begin things. The fixed signs sustain things. And the dual signs could go either way, creating or destroying or sustaining things. And you could think of that like the 3 deities as well. The movable signs, like the creator of the universe, Brahma. The fixed signs, the sustainer of the universe, Vishnu. And the dual signs, more like Shiva energy, which transforms things. So Gemini has this dual transformative Shiva kind of energy. So it's likely that we'll see a lot of transformation and change over the next year for all of us. AI tools are just going to grow exponentially. Many companies like Google are predicting massive growth, and OpenAI predicting like artificial general intelligence within the next year. Maybe 2030 was kind of the conservative estimate. But basically, what that means is like the computers are smarter than humans and indistinguishable from humans. I think there's still a ways to go. When I test it out on astrology stuff, I'm often like, nah, it's not there yet. It's got a few years probably, but it is growing exponentially. So who knows? I even just did like an image generation thing today, and it was not useful at all. So, there's things like it's hit or miss a lot of times right now, but it's growing exponentially. And this year is a great time to be familiar with AI tools like ChatGPT or whatever you use. It's a lot of growth in that area over the next year, a lot of opportunities to deepen the usefulness of these tools. There's a lot of fear that they'll replace a lot of jobs, but this just happens through every generation. So many jobs come and go. It's really just necessary that the world continues to expand and evolve and adapt. So that is part of this Jupiter and Gemini is how do you want to expand, evolve, and adapt in your life? In a lot of ways with Jupiter here, it's a protective energy. So again, like Jupiter protecting the planet Earth, it's protecting you to grow. There's a status for every graha, you may know. So like the sun is the king, the moon is the queen, Mercury is the prince, and Jupiter is a royal advisor. In the same way, like a royalty would go to a guru for advisement, like an astrologer for advisement. So this energy, the advisement now is coming through Gemini means, through creativity, through play. If you've never done anything playful as an adult, this is a good time to do that. Like going to like a trampoline park or doing improv comedy. I love improv comedy. It's one of my favorite ways to just get out of the mind and just be playful and present. I've done that for many years. I highly recommend improv comedy if you haven't done that. But that's a very Mercury thing, a very Gemini thing. Jupiter and Gemini, great time for learning playful skills. Great time for meeting new friends, going to social events, meeting new people, especially people who share similar spiritual values, like going to temples and bhajans and kirtans and yoga classes and spiritual practices and sharing in space with other spiritually minded people. All very favorable over the next year. So the Jupiter transit, again, it's usually in a sign for a year, but this year has a special twist to it. So there are some very important dates related with this transit, including most notably that on October 18th, Jupiter is going to move ahead into Cancer very fast. It's unusual for Jupiter to move through a sign so fast, but that's going to happen here. May 14th until October 18th, Jupiter is in Gemini, but then October 18th to December 5th, it's in Cancer, giving us a preview of what's to come in 2026 when Jupiter is exalted, a much more harmonious, beautiful energy in Cancer coming in 2026. A lot of growth and abundance and expansion and great teachers and learning and wisdom, a lot of beautiful things coming in 2026. It's a bit more mixed in 2025, as I've been sharing here. There's a bit of this friction of the head and the logical mind versus the intuitive spiritual downloads that's going on in 2025. So it's very helpful to remember that between October 18th to December 5th, that's going to be a more harmonious, beautiful time, good for nurturing things. I'm going to talk about it on the podcast when we get there. But as you're planning ahead, you can put those dates on your calendar. If you have Mindful New Year, it's already on your calendar. You have those dates from the beginning of the year. But basically, it's a beautiful time for harmony, connection, nurturing, nourishing things, time with loved ones, time with family, time for self-care, time for all things to do with nurturing and nourishment in October to December. I'll talk about it more when we get there, but that's something to think about as we go ahead. But knowing otherwise, we got this time from May 14th to June 1st, 2025 to 2026, of all these lessons I mentioned today. And if you want the more personalized version of it, go to the link I mentioned and the link in the show notes, quietmindastrology.com/Jupiter and Gemini, to get the free guide for your rising and moon signs. So whatever your rising and moon signs are, listen to those. The ones in Vedic astrology, not Western astrology. Wherever your rising and moon sign is going to tell you how this transit affects you, including all the aspects, because Jupiter has 2 special aspects that you might know: the 5th and the 9th aspect. Generally, the 5th aspect of Jupiter shows where it brings luck into your life, fortune, opportunities, blessings. The 9th aspect shows where it brings in opportunities for travel, spiritual growth, new learning, new wisdom, new philosophy, things like that. So you'll get detailed info on all of that on the free guides, not here on the podcast. I'm not sharing it anywhere else. So you'll want to get that free guide. If you're subscribed to my emails, I'll be sending this out already. So you'll have it in your inbox. You don't need to go to that link. You can get it already right to your inbox. I'm sending this as a free gift. I like to give these free gifts every now and then and say thank you for being a listener. Thank you for enjoying this podcast and following me. I know many of you follow me for many years. So I really appreciate that. But that's our overview of the major transit this week is Jupiter moving into Gemini. That's the main stuff of how to work with it. I'll give you more details, breakdown of all the dates coming up with that and how to work with it over the next year. It's a good guide to come back to over the year on that free guide. And also, if you want to work with me deeper and learn yoga, this coming Monday, I'll be hosting a free live workshop at quietmind.yoga/workshop. called Become Your Own Yoga Teacher. There's an opportunity to learn how to deepen your yoga practice, how to guide yourself through practices that can take care of your anatomy, your energetic connection to the practices, your breath work, meditation practices. We'll be covering the 10 major skills of being your own yoga teacher. It's an amazing workshop. I had amazing feedback on it last year, and this is the second year I'm offering this one. So that's free as well on Monday, May 19th. It's a great way to work with this Jupiter and Gemini energy is learning new skills. And that's at quietmind.yoga/workshop, the Become Your Own Yoga Teacher workshop coming up on Monday, May 19th. If you enjoy this podcast, leave a comment on Spotify. Let me know what you want to see more of. Share it with a friend. Leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Thank you for listening. And again, if you want the last thing I'll say, if you want the more overview about the new moon and the full moon this month and the sun moving into Taurus, go to the monthly horoscope for more on that. And thank you for listening and look forward to sharing more with you next time on the Quiet Mind Astrology Podcast.